Today, we're diving into a really fundamental shift happening in our economy. I'm talking about a complete revolution in what it even means to own something. You know, we're moving from a world where ownership was physical, tangible, to one where it's digital, it's fractional, and frankly, it's accessible to pretty much anyone. So let's explore how this new economy is actually being built. And I want you to really sit with that question for a second. I mean, for centuries, the most valuable assets, think skyscrapers, think priceless art, were completely off limits to most of us. But what if that's not true anymore? What if technology could just shatter those exclusive assets into tiny, affordable, tradable little pieces? Believe me, this is not just a thought experiment. It's the very heart of a massive economic transformation that's happening right now. And this isn't some far-off, distant future. It's happening as we speak. The code you're looking at here, it's like it's building a bridge connecting physical things like real estate and art to the incredible speed and efficiency of the digital world. This is creating a whole new ecosystem where a single pixel on a screen can represent a real piece of a skyscraper, making ownership more accessible than it has ever been in human history. So to really understand how we got here, we kind of need to visit the places where these ideas were born, the virtual worlds. We're going to explore two pioneers of the metaverse that took radically different paths. One built a massive corporate empire, while the other was focused on a kind of decentralized, creative utopia. So on one side, you have Roblox, an absolute juggernaut. We're talking massive scale, all driven by user-generated content, but operating in a very centralized economy. And then, on the other side, you have voxels. It's much more of an artisan community, a niche culture, built from the ground up on the blockchain with a totally decentralized spirit. One is a corporate giant, the other is like a digital bohemian neighborhood. First, let's just try to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of Roblox. In late 2025, it was clocking in over 151 million people every single day. This isn't some niche hobby, right? This is a global phenomenon that has basically introduced an entire generation to the idea of living, playing, and creating in a virtual space. And here's the really crucial detail. It's who these users are. More than half of them are under 16 years old. These are the digital natives who are, right now, building the economies of tomorrow. Their intuitive understanding of virtual goods and digital identity, that's not just a passing trend. It's literally a blueprint for the future of all commerce. Okay, now let's completely flip the script and look at voxels. See, it never aimed for Roblox's massive scale. Instead, it focused on cultivating this deep, passionate community of artists and creators. It became a cultural hub where the value wasn't just in the game itself, but in the real-world connections and the genuine artistic movements that grew out of it. So what was the key difference? Well, it was in its DNA. Voxels was built on the Ethereum blockchain from day one. That meant your land, your creations, they were non-fungible tokens, NFTs. Think of it like a verifiable digital deed of ownership. You didn't just license your creations from a big company, you owned them. And this attracted pioneers like DJ Shark Anthony and ResQ Records, who built these incredible cultural venues that proved a virtual world could have a real-world soul. So, okay, we have these incredible new worlds and these totally new forms of ownership, but for this revolution to really go mainstream, the ideas that were tested in these virtual spaces needed real-world rules. The next logical step was moving out of that chaotic Wild West and into a structured, regulated marketplace. And anyone who followed this space in the early years knows exactly what I'm talking about. It was a complete roller coaster. You had these extreme price swings, major platforms collapsing, and just a total lack of clarity from regulators. That uncertainty, it was the single biggest wall preventing serious institutional money from ever entering the market. And you could see this uncertainty so clearly even among the experts. I mean, look at this. For 2026, you had major analysts predicting Bitcoin's price would be anywhere from $75,000 to $225,000. When your predictions have a range of 150 grand, you don't have a stable market. You have a market that is just screaming for some clear guardrails. And that's exactly what finally arrived in 2025 with the Clarity Act. This was a landmark piece of legislation designed to do one thing, and one thing only: end the confusion. It finally gave a clear answer to the question of who regulates what, and in doing so, it created a stable foundation for the entire industry to build on. So how did it create order? Well, it did it in three really key ways. First, it set up clear categories for digital assets. Then, it pointed to the big ones like Bitcoin and Ethereum and officially designated them as commodities. And maybe most importantly, it put in place serious investor protections. See, this wasn't about stifling innovation. It was about making the market safe enough for real, sustainable growth. Okay, so with this newfound clarity, the stage was finally set for the most exciting chapter yet, connecting this powerful digital infrastructure back to the physical world. This, right here, is where the whole concept of ownership gets redefined on a truly global scale. And the scale of this opportunity is, well, it's just staggering. Analysts are projecting that the market for tokenized real-world assets, or RWAs, is going to exceed $10 trillion by 2030. That's trillion with a T. That is not just a new market, it's a fundamental reshaping of all of global finance. So what exactly is tokenization? I know, it sounds complex, but the idea is actually pretty simple. It's just the process of taking a traditionally illiquid asset, like say a commercial building, and digitally dividing its ownership into little tokens that can be bought and sold instantly, just like a share of stock. And the benefits here are just enormous. For the asset owners, it unlocks trillions of dollars of value that was just trapped in these illiquid things. For investors like you and me, it democratizes access, letting us own a piece of things that were previously reserved for only the ultra-wealthy. And for everybody, it makes transactions faster, cheaper, and way more transparent by recording them on a blockchain. All right, let's pull it all together. We've seen the evolution of virtual worlds. We've seen the establishment of regulatory clarity. And now we're seeing the rise of a technology that can digitize any asset on Earth. So what happens when all of these powerful forces finally converge? The path to this new economy is actually really clear when you lay it out. It starts with these niche experiments in true ownership, like voxels back in 2018. Then comes the regulatory framework with the Clarity Act, and that just unlocks a flood of institutional investment. And this convergence is what leads us to a future where tokenizing real-world assets becomes a multi-trillion-dollar pillar of the new economy. And all of that brings us to our final question. We are moving into a world where a song, a single share in a racehorse, or 1 square foot of a skyscraper can all be owned, traded, and managed as digital assets. This isn't just a technological shift, it's a philosophical one. It really forces us all to reconsider the very nature of value, of property, and what it truly means to own a piece of our world.